today. The midterm itself, I haven't come up with a date for it yet. I'm thinking probably either Thursday when we come back, probably the Thursday that we come back. You know, we have that Tuesday's class, and then probably I'm planning it for probably the Thursday of the week when we come back. See what the date on that is. All right, so we're all. Oh, all right.
You don't have class next Tuesday, I think.
Right. We're off the 10th. Oh, okay. So actually, we could make it probably the 17th. All your other ones are done by then, right? Mostly. Yes. No.
I haven't actually heard about a midterm for any of my other classes.
Oh, no? Oh, okay. Yeah, it just feels like it's so early. It's like, I mean, it doesn't really feel like the middle of the semester yet. I think they're just trying to do it, we're supposed to put the midterm grades in this week, and obviously these are not going to be part of the midterm grades. All right, so actually, all right, all right. Well, in that case, yeah, we'll keep it for the 19th. We'll make it that Thursday of when we come back. So we're off the 10th. We're here the 12th. We should have a regular class the 12th, the 17th, and then have the midterm on the 19th. Yeah, that looks good. So you can start working on your excuses why you can't take it during your break. So make it good. All right, so midterm Mod West. I'll send out an email about it so the people that weren't here will know about it. You know, they'll be so worried. Let's see, how many do we have? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. Okay, not that yet. Yeah, I mean, the attendance in the class seems like it's been reasonably decent. Participation's been horrible, but at least you show. All right, so with that uplifting message, let's continue with the romantics. So we left off with the. Oh, okay. Since we're moving the quiz a little. Okay. I usually play the like these works so you kind of hear what they sound like, but we're still a little behind, so I think we're just going to talk about them, not listen to them. That way you won't have that bored look, and we're just not in the mood for it. So yeah, well, let's continue then. So we talked about the paintings, we talked about the literature. Now the other part is the music. All right, so remember, different countries focusing on different types of romanticism. For Romantic literature, the Brits are preeminent. For Romantic art, it's going to be the French, and for Romantic music, definitely the Germans, so Central Europe. And it's not unusual for one work to start in one country and then take on another form in another country. All right, so now to really appreciate what Romantic music is about, we have to look at what it's rebelling against. Just like we saw, remember, in looking at the painting, we first looked at that neoclassical one, the one by Poussin, and that got us to appreciate the Romantic works of Delacroix, how they broke away from that. All right, so for Romantic music, it's going to break away from the neoclassical strain of classical music. Now, composers we think of with as neoclassical composers, Haydn, Mozart and the early Beethoven. So they would be some examples. So when we think about classical music, there's many different periods of classical music. There's music of the Renaissance, there's the early Baroque, there's the Baroque, there is the classical, there's the Romantic, there's the post-Romantic. So there's these different periods of classical music. Sometimes when we just think of classical music, we just think of it as either music without words or serious music or academic music, but it's really much more varied than that. Now I'll let you get more of that in the Intro to the Fine Arts course. Before I get too technical, who here plays an instrument? Okay, what do you play?
Trumpet.
Oh, okay.
I just play the violin.
Oh, violin. Okay, great.
The saxophone.
Saxophone. What type of sax?
The baritone sax.
Baritone. Okay. Is that E flat or B flat? I can't remember.
E flat.
E flat. Okay.
I used to play flute.
Flute. Okay, good. Well, it's good to hear some people are still playing instruments. It's always a little depressing when years ago we asked almost half the class played it, and now fewer and fewer people. But it is what it is. Now I play the piano and I sing. I actually started off in music history. That's really kind of what I wanted to be, but found out I didn't play quite well enough to do it professionally as a music historian. So I switched off into regular history. But I still like to cover the music parts. It's always one of my favorite parts to mention. All right, well, so we appreciate classical music. So it's there are these different periods, and they have different expectations. Now, with the neoclassical classical music, we think of composers like Franz Joseph Haydn, Mozart, or Beethoven. Now, Beethoven is sometimes seen as the bridge between 18th century neoclassical classical music and 19th century Romantic classical music. So, the difference, okay. Now, Haydn writes over 100 different symphonies. And to be honest, a lot of the symphonies sound pretty similar. It's often, yeah.
Do you mind saying those dates again for Beethoven?
I didn't give dates.
Years, like you said.
Oh, okay. So for neoclassical music, we associate that mostly with the 18th century. And Beethoven is the bridge between the 18th century and the early 19th century. So when we think of Haydn, he writes over 100 different symphonies. There are a lot of them pretty similar. They're all going to be the same amount of movements, the same instrumentation, the same speed of the movements. The order of the movements, fast, slow, fast, or slow, fast, slow, they all follow a set pattern. So it's very formulaic. Now, the same thing with Mozart. Now, you can tell where a work is in the works of Mozart by the Kirschel number. So you see in front of the work of Mozart, it'll say something like Kirschel 545. That's his sonata in C major. And that tells you it's his 545th work. So stylistically, it's going to be different than, Kirschel 241 or something. One's much earlier, less mature. Now, Beethoven is seen as the bridge between the classical music, where it's very formulaic, very structured, and kind of a free-for-all. So what we begin to see in Beethoven, a terrible event happens in his life, which is basically one of the worst things that can happen to someone, particularly if it's someone whose whole life is centered around sound. What happens to Beethoven? He goes deaf, right. So think how tragic that is. Your whole world centered around sound, and you can't hear anymore. But the nice part with music is, even if you can't hear it, if you look at the score, a musical composition, you know in your head exactly what it sounds like. So anyone that plays music will know. They know from, like, let's say, a C to a G. Do, so, They know it's a perfect fifth. So even out hearing that, they know exactly how much the interval is between the notes. So Beethoven is still able to compose even if he can't actually hear it. Now, sometimes he would play with some of his friends, and the sad thing is he was not able to tell how loud he was playing. So he would often kind of like drown them out, or playing it much louder than he intended to. Because that nuance he couldn't get without being able to hear it. But to compose music, he's able to do it. Thank God. Because he creates all these wonderful masterpieces. Now, one of his works that stands out, for example, are his symphonies. Now, his symphonies, his odd ones are usually considered to be his greatest ones. So the first, the third, the fifth, the seventh, and particularly the ninth. So the ninth really stands out, his ninth symphony, because he actually has people singing during it. Now that one's kind of short, so I think that one I'm going to show you what I mean. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll do some of the shorter ones, and we'll kind of we won't spend like as much time as I normally would on it. We'll still give you a flavor. All right, I think we'll do that. All right, so actually, while we wait for the computer to start, let me get the title of the work, so I'm going to show you. So, all right, so Beethoven, we're going to look at Ode to Joy. Schubert, we're going to look at a work called Erlkönig, the Elf King. Chopin, we'll look at the Minute Waltz. That'll be it. So none of those super long. Yeah, so write these down before I pull the screen down, please. All right, so for Schubert, for Beethoven, what we're going to hear is this Ode to Joy. That's from Symphony Number 9. For Schubert, we'll talk about the Erlkönig. That's translated as Elf King. And Chopin, the Minute Waltz. work isn't romantic, it's breaking away from the neoclassical. So as you listen to it, try to think what is romantic about this. We talked a lot about what romanticism is about at this point. Okay, so what do we see that's What do we see that's romantic about this? Yeah.
There were a lot of dramatic changes in dynamics and tempo.
Good, yeah. So there was nothing kind of leading into it, and then suddenly like this shocking change of tempo and dynamics. Very good. And anything else? Yeah.
The quick dramatic ending.
Okay, yeah, it's very dramatic ending, and you saw the people were jumping around in it. It's a feeling of emotions that makes us feel human, and that's what connects us to it, and the fact that that's why it's called a humanity. The characteristics like this, the emotions that come out during it, you feel something with this. It's really intense joy, and that somebody who can't even hear can create something with that much joy in it. He's not there wallowing, oh, woe is me. He's showing all this intense, happiness. Good. So it's not that balanced and order that we see, this restraint that is often common in a lot of the neoclassical works, but basically breaking outside the box. And, you never have somebody singing during a symphony. That's, unheard of. But there they do. And that's why I tried to show you that flash mob version, is that it shows it's made for the regular people. It's not meant, just well-dressed people in a refined setting. This music's supposed to speak to everyone, and everyone's supposed to feel it. Good. All right, now Franz Shubert, considered one of the 10 top composers of all time. Now, Schubert was kind of composing at a time when the whole music system began to change. For example, the 18th century composers, the neoclassical composers, they basically were working on the patronage system. So if you were good at your craft, you would often get a good job working for a count or a duke, and you would be the musician in residence, and you dedicate all your works to him, and you would entertain people at his parties by showing new works you created. So it was a nice, well-paying job. You could make a good living. It was a prestigious job. Now, that began to change by the Romantic period. By that time, that the whole patronage system is falling apart, and instead you basically have to try to earn a living by creating works that hopefully people will want to hear. The problem is, even if you're one of the greatest ever, you often find it very difficult to earn a living. That's pretty much the case today. The majority of people in music, with a few exceptions, find it very hard to earn a living, and definitely not a good living. Just to give you, a personal example, a close friend of mine in college, he was a cello major, and, he was really good. He ended up getting a master's in cello from the Northwestern University, that, one of the best schools of music in the country. And that's actually where Dr. Schmidt went as well. And my friend got a job in an orchestra, and fairly recently he was playing it with an orchestra in South Africa. Despite all that, he makes less than $25,000 a year, less you make it than can make as a McDonald's drudge. So obviously he's not doing it for the money. It's for the love of the music, the chance to express yourself, these intense feelings that it brings out. So very, very hard to earn a living. Okay, now Schubert, even though he's considered one of the 10 top composers of all time in the classical field, had a very hard time earning a living. Now, another thing he had going for him, the lack of things he had going for him, he was also very homely. So an unattractive man, poor, and to make it even worse, he set his sight on superstar model type women. So what do you think he's going to be writing about a lot?
Heartbreak.
Heartbreak, unfulfilled longings. these intense yearnings that are never fulfilled. Well, I sometimes have played works by Schubert for people, and most people don't know German, but still people can often tell somewhat what they're about. What will give us some clues of what a work could be about without a direct translation? What can be done in music to convey some sort of language? Music's often called the international language of sound.
The key it's in?
Okay, good. The key it's in. So Mozart's favorite key, G major, and Rachmaninoff's B flat minor. Well, whole different outlook on life, a whole different, feeling towards it. Very good. Okay. What else?
The tempo?
The tempo. So is it, moving really fast, or is it slow and draggy? Right. Definitely. Anything else?
Sort of like how loud you said pieces are?
Okay. So that could be part of it. It could be the tone of it. Like the different instruments create a different tone. A cello by nature is kind of on the gloomy side. You don't think of like a happy music with the cello. But what about a piccolo? Can a piccolo really come across as real serious? No, it's a silly sounding instrument. So different instruments have different timbres to them and different tones. Okay, so all these things kind of give us some indication. All right, well, Schubert, now this work we're going to listen to, the Elf King, Erlkönig. This is, it starts off as a poem. Remember I told you before, sometimes works start off in one form of romanticism and then they take on another form in a different country. Here we see, for example, Schubert takes this work by Goethe, who took it actually from an earlier German writer by the name of Heinrich Heine. And it's this, it switches over from literature to music. Now, what we're going to listen to, The Elf King, is an example of, and this becomes popular by the Romantic period. It's an example of what's called, it's a Lied. A Lied means a dramatic German art song. So a lot of the composers are writing these Lieder, Lieder plural for Lieds, these dramatic German art songs. So they're emotional. They're usually one voice accompanied by a single instrument. So there's nothing there to hide it. You see the rawness of the music itself. It's not like a symphony where the different instruments can kind of hide something or build up together. This is instead just the voice in one instrument. So let's look at this work by. We'll listen to a version by a baritone by the name of Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau. Now what's nice about the baritone range is it can go. It's very varied. It can go occasionally into the tenor range, so it can have a high voice, or it can go, the really deep basso profundo, really deep voice. Now, this one voice is going to be imitating different sounds. So it's going to be a father, a son, and an evil spirit. And look at his expressions as we see it. about. Okay, so we start with the bass hand on the piano, that rumbling. Now that is what time of day or night is that likely to be, and what season probably? What kind of mood does it suggest? Remember, all these things are trying to suggest moods. Yeah.
It's kind of dark, so I'd say like winter, nighttime.
Right, good. Winter, nighttime, yeah, exactly. It's kind of the late afternoon, it's going right into the evening, and it's the late fall or early winter. Yeah, very good. Does it sound like a calm day, like weather-wise, or what does it kind of sound like? Almost thundering, right? It's about to happen. It's building up. All right, so the father has his little son on horseback. He's trampling through the woods with his son on his saddle, trying to get him home to put him in bed. The boy's, restless and tired. It's late, and he's going through the woods, and then the boy is like struggling. He holds him closer and closer so he doesn't fall off the horse. And he's trying, the wind's kicking up, it starts raining, it's just miserable out. He's trying to get him home so he can, change him and put him in the bed. The boy's struggling, and he, keeps holding him tighter so he doesn't fall off the horse. And at a certain point, he hears like a shriek. That's that high, sound. Then suddenly the boy is real quiet, so the father, he finally wore himself out, maybe fell asleep. So as soon as he gets home, he jumps off the horse. He doesn't even put the horse away, and then, runs and opens his cottage door to put this boy to bed. So he's ready to, change him and put him into his pajamas, get him ready for bed. Then he noticed something. The boy's dead, or is tote. And that's that shock. There is tot. He is dead. What happened? The shriek was this evil spirit in the woods, the Elf King, who murdered the boy right in his father's arms. In the earlier version, the Heine version, it goes even further. He raped the boy before killing him. Those German romantics sure know how to have a good time. So, it's all this horror and, hate and, so, all right, so what are some romantic elements in this? Yeah.
It's very emotional and dramatic, shocking.
Yeah, it's good. Shocking, perfect. Yeah, I mean, we have the weather, so, what's more emotional? This, wind and rain and darkness coming, or beautiful sunny day, watching the swan, float on the lake. That's not emotional. This is. So, and then it's shocking. Right in his own father's arms, and he gets killed. Okay, so that's what it conveys, that intense emotion. All right, now let's look at another composer, Frederic Chopin, and that's how it's pronounced. Please don't come out of the class calling him Chopin. He's a major, composer. He's not a minor one. Now he writes almost entirely for one instrument. Does anyone know what instrument he wrote for? Yes. Piano. Yeah, he wrote almost everything for piano. He is a Polish composer, actually Polish and French, but the Poles kind of made him theirs. The French have many other ones. I guess they don't need them quite as much. But he is, so he writes etudes and nocturnes and preludes and polonaises, Polish dances, and all these different things for the piano. What he's most probably remembered for, that you definitely have heard from him, is the Funeral March in B flat minor, That's more drama to it. All right, so he writes entirely for piano. The piano really takes off during the Romantic period. The piano is what they call a parlor instrument. So it's an instrument anyone middle class or above would have one, as it's an example of that you've made it into the middle class. It shows that you've made it. Like there's certain things you have that kind of show the world that you've achieved some kind of success. So like if you live in suburbia, what would be a good sign of success there? A pool in your backyard, and particularly, like today, an infinity pool. Okay? Or a Range Rover, something that kind of shows you've made it, a Lincoln Navigator. So these are things we think of with suburban success. Okay, so for here, it's going to be a piano. So if you're middle class, you would have a piano in your parlor. The parlor becomes where you would entertain people. So people would sing around the piano. All girls, middle class or above, were expected to learn the piano. Boys kind of had a choice. But it's a sign that you've made it. And what makes the piano such a great instrument is it's very versatile. To learning the piano, you can basically learn how to play any other instrument, because the piano's in two different clefs, so you know how to read both the bass clef with your left hand and the treble clef with your right hand. It can mimic any other instrument in the orchestra. It can be included with any other instrument in the orchestra, or it works by itself. A lot of works just for piano, or piano with voice. Now, the word piano actually means, it's actually short for something. It's not really a piano, it's really short for pianoforte. Piano means soft, forte means loud. The piano can do both. You can go from tremendously whisper-like all the way to, something you can hear 2 blocks away with, these really big grand pianos. Well, what's the one bad, well, there are kind of 2 really bad parts about pianos. Right, how big they are. So, you can't just, it's a nice day out. Hey, I want to play my instrument outside. Well, you have a violin, you can do that. You have a guitar, you can do that. You can't do that with a piano. It's too big and heavy and bulky. So that's going to be one. The other is going to be often, the cost of it. So you're not going to, you're going to start your kid off on a recorder, so you pay $10, he may like it or may not like it. Or you're going to start them off, hey, let's buy a $10,000 piano. No. And it takes up a lot of room. For a while I was living in a small place, and I had a baby grand piano in there. It took up a good part of my living room. When I got a bigger place, then it, didn't matter. But, it's very limited, and that's why they start making different sizes of piano. They have the 12-foot grands, they have the 5-foot, 3-inch baby grands. But if you don't have much room, then you can also get an upright, spin it. And then today, of course, just a keyboard. But so this became where you would entertain people. So you show you made it, and you would entertain people. So it becomes a symbol of bourgeois life. All right, so Chopin, he was, he also was, this time when, now Chopin is considered usually within the top 3 greatest piano players of all time as a pianist. Technically, he's brilliant, so one of the best ever. And he writes very prolifically, almost entirely for the piano. Now, he, even though he's extremely talented and one of the greatest pianists of all times, and writes so many of these works for piano at a time when the piano is really becoming popular, Like any musician, he's poor. Okay, but in addition, now he's not like Shubert, where he's homely. He's actually a very good-looking guy, which allows him to attract a wealthy woman. Now, another thing about it, but if there's anything probably worse than being poor, it would be what? Along with being poor, what's something else you probably would never want to be? Sick. So he's very sickly. His girlfriend, George Sand, she's kind of a third-rate novelist, but she is today remembered for her influence on Chopin. So not for her novels, but she cares a lot about the arts. What she used to do is she would lock him in rooms and not let him go out till he created something amazing. It didn't matter how sickly he was, she still would make him have a grueling concert schedule and create a lot of works. So it's largely because of her influence that we have so many works of Chopin. Now, she would also embarrass him. Now, she stands out as an early feminist figure. She's kind of an interesting early feminist figure. She dressed in a very mannish fashion, so she wore tweed jackets. She smoked cigars. She drank brandy. She cursed a lot. She wore long black riding boots with her everywhere and carried a riding crop. So she was definitely the aggressive one in that relationship, and she would often embarrass him. Before he performed, she would sometimes say, "Here's the sexless Chopin," right in front of everybody in a major concert hall. Other times, she went the opposite way. She kept calling him "my lover." Now that's different than my intendant or, my boyfriend. It's saying it's a sexual relationship. So she is definitely, standing out. But because of her influence, we do have many of these masterpieces of Chopin. All right, so let's listen to this Minute Waltz by the Sexless Chopin. Now, it was funny. Now, one little side thing, it's just because it's funny. When my older nephew was looking at schools, I did bring him here to Del Valle. I said, why don't you check it out, see, you might want to come here. And he was shocked because he saw all the women in the wearing the horse togs. And he said, what are these, all like dominatrices? I said, no, that's just normal riding wear. But he never saw anything like that before. Gotta get that out there. All right, so let's see your Minute Waltz. Oh, okay. See, now, another way you could tell, like, remember I told you for Mozart, the K number tells you the order of his works, Kerschel number. Well, for many composers that don't have a specific letter, they put it as an OP, opus number, and that would tell you the order of his works. So the one we're going to listen to is opus 64. All right, so try to think what you were doing at age 5, and we're going to see what Evan
Please try to streamline these ideas. We need Grammarly.
I've got your back.
Good enough. All right, so listen to this and try to feel what makes this a romantic work. This is the Minute Waltz by Chopin. Listen how lyrical it is. That's one thing Chopin's known for. Or in fact, singing quality of the piano. Pretty impressive, yeah. I know. And notice he did not have the music in front of him. He memorized that whole thing. So we see what makes it romantic is the lyricism in it, loud the soft, parts of it are gentle, parts of it are rolling. He uses the pedal there for part of it, other parts it's less sustaining. So there's a lot of variance, which comes across even in a short work like that. Now, one other composer I want to mention. We're not going to listen to him, but I'm going to just talk about him for a minute or two. Hector Berlioz. All right, Hector Berlioz is a French composer, and he writes this work called the Symphonie Fantastique. Symphonie Fantastique, translated as the Fantastic Symphony. And he shocks a lot of people with this work because it demonstrates elements of, get the light on. He demonstrates elements of what's called atonality. Now, atonality is chords that don't go well together. It's sometimes called dissonance. So, for example, there's certain chords we're used to hearing. There's a simple tonic chord. Do, mi, so. You put all three of those together, they're pleasant. We're used to hearing them all the time. They seem to go together. But now, if you get a chord where it's dissonant, it's often too close together. So like a B to a C or a C to a C sharp. Do, D, it's, do, re, that we're used to, but do, D, that, So it doesn't know, do we want it to go down or do we want it to go up? So it doesn't go well together. It's almost like, you go to the old-fashioned chalkboards and you have the Cruella de Vil nails and now he puts these elements in his Symphonie Fantastique. Now people aren't expecting that, so they're going to a concert in Paris. They're all dressed up. It's a fancy concert hall, and at first they thought, when they kept hearing this dissonance, they thought, what an awful orchestra. They keep making mistakes. Then they realized no orchestra could be that bad, and they realized he wrote it that way. And they basically want him thrown out of France and thrown out of the musical establishment because it's just so unusual, so shocking. Now, music's always trying, like art, to push its boundaries. But he jumped ahead too much. Now, by the second phase of Romanticism, by the 1870s, dissonance became a lot more common. You see that, for example, in the works of Arnold Schoenberg. Schoenberg has a lot of dissonance in his works, but he's, 40 to 50 years later. They kind of make fun of this a little bit. Has anyone seen Back to the Future Part 1? All right, so remember when Marty McFly was listening, when his parents heard, his parents heard Johnny Be Good. Now that was exciting for them. It was a lot more interesting than the boring things that they were used to listening to. Being in Frank Sinatra, so things like Mr. Sandman, just real boring kind of music, and then suddenly the cool beats of Johnny Be Good. But what happened when they went ahead and another 20 years and started playing the wailing saxophone of Van Halen? They were shocked and horror. What on earth is this? And he said, you're not ready for this yet, but your kids are going to love it. And the same thing, like when Elvis first came out. Today I think most of us find Elvis kind of boring. I mean, does anyone really love him? I mean, today, But at the time, they were horrified and shocked by the generation. Then they call him, Elvis with the gyrating pelvis. What do you mean you're not supposed to emphasize your crotch and you're not supposed to play this kind of music that was traditionally associated with the down and out African Americans of the time? And he's doing all of that, and the people are horrified. But that's it. With time, now it's boring because we've gone so much beyond that. Okay, so that would be it with the Romantic music. We'll start back on politics on Thursday. And as I said, I'll try to get that review sheet up today.